So welcome to episode 6 of Chief Exec Shout Out. As you can see, we're right in the middle of summer. It's an absolutely beautiful day to be filming the Chief Exec Shout Out. But actually, despite the rain, I didn't want to miss the chance to actually just come out and have a look at the space that's around me for a really, really important project that the team are working on between now and the end of the summer, to do something very, very special. Now, where I'm located is just right at the back, at the front of the hospital, at the back of one of the car parks, and we're very close to Little Haven, which you know is a very beautiful garden of tranquility and calmness for people to go and spend time and to reflect on their loss. But just following the year that we've been through, we've got a great combination of the patient staff, the patient council, our clinical teams, and some fundraising to build here a garden that will be of equal tranquility and recuperation for staff, patients and relatives. This project is just growing from strength to strength, and I really hope very shortly we'll be able to do another piece out here, preferably with the sun shining, that you can see the transformation, and everyone's getting very excited about this. The working title is Garden for Life, and we'll be hearing from the teams in a moment to just say a little bit more about that. Really, really pleased that we've got 3 colleagues with us today just to talk about how when we get teams together we can do really amazing things. Just had a bit of a look outside in the rain at what we're hoping to do for the support of our staff, and that's the working title of Garden for Life. So I'm really pleased to welcome Jim, who's just going to tell us a little bit about where the idea from the garden came from and what you hope it will achieve.
Well, the garden originally, it was a staff initiative. They were recognising that people who had suffered greatly during the COVID lockdown hadn't necessarily found ways in which they could experience, sort of understand their grief, come to terms with some of the problems they may have encountered. That's both the staff and indeed the patients and the carers. Often they were isolated, people were having to deal with very difficult situations, and so we were looking to find some way in which we could celebrate the lives of people that have been lost, recognise the kind of stresses that both carers, clinicians, all the hospital staff were under during this very difficult time. So we needed to find somewhere where people could actually contemplate, the positive sides, the memories of the people they may have lost, the time to sort of find space for themselves, to actually recognise that being outdoors, being in a garden of life, full of life, gives you a chance to celebrate life. A garden growing, there's no better option than seeing a garden grow, to think about the future. And I think that really how it's come about. It's a celebration of life, but a recognition of what we've had to go through, everybody.
I think that's just such a lovely description, Jim, of everything that people are now coming to terms with. As we start to come out of a year that's been unlike any other year, certainly that I've ever experienced. And I think it's a really good example of how you, as a colleague from the Patient Council, is there not just for patients, but actually for our staff as well, because together they're the ones that really have these very intense experiences, and it's really important, isn't it, that both have got a place. So Becky, just tell me about your role in the garden and what does it mean to you and your colleagues?
So during the first wave of COVID, myself and many other colleagues were redeployed to COVID areas. Mm-hmm. And so one of the hardest parts of nursing during that time was that relatives couldn't visit their loved ones, whether they had COVID or not. And so often patients would come via ambulance or by their family, and then they were never seen again by their family members. And that was really difficult to manage. And when we introduced Last Days of Life visiting for relatives, because the whole pandemic was completely new, relatives were really in a dilemma about coming in to see their loved ones because they had children at home who were perhaps vulnerable, or relatives, and they had to self-isolate, and it was a scary time, so it was a big decision to make. So when I went back to my job, my normal job, I woke up and I thought, we could have something where people could pay their respects near to where their family members spent their last days or hours of life. Something that we could, it would become part of the history of Derriford, and also so that staff could go there and reflect on their experiences, good or bad, in a quiet area. And so I contacted Amanda from the comms team, and she said, great minds think alike. Sian Dennison has had exactly the same thoughts. Why don't you get your heads together? And so it started from there, and some dodgy drawings. And the team grew, and of course they brought new ideas to the fore. And so it's gone from a memorial to a much bigger project now. And everybody's worked really hard on this outside of their usual jobs, because it's so important to all of them, not just to individuals. And I think it would be, I think it's a really worthwhile project.
I love the idea that it will be part of, what Derriford is known for, and part of our future, as well as dealing with what we've been through. And I know Sian is just so super keen about this. So, and I know collectively, once you all want to do something, then it's just going to happen. But I think there's a small issue of raising some money, and an issue of actually everybody wanting to get behind this project. So Chris, tell me a little bit about your team and what contribution they'd like to make.
So myself and Maggie Phillips in the facilities team had a bit of an idea probably back in January time now, where we were kind of thinking of all the staff that were on the front line, was that were working on the front line, and we just wanted to give a little bit something back initially to the staff to say thank you for everything they had done and everything they had put themselves through and worked with. And we kind of thought about how best to do this, and we kind of thought it would be nice for them just to kind of have one or two things that they can enjoy. So we spoke to kind of contractors, friends, local businesses, and we kind of put together this prize package now, which kind of consists of all sorts of things, from gift vouchers to TVs to restaurants vouchers, stays at Barrington Hall overnight, Gaia Spa, meal vouchers, all of this we put together. And we thought what we would do is raffle these tickets off for £1 each to the staff. They can buy as many tickets or as less tickets as they want. And then hopefully they would win these prizes. We put 25 prizes together, and it's just a little bit something that we can give back to these guys to say thank you, really. It's just kind of gone from there. So we've got this package we put together now, and hopefully we can kind of raise some funds to put towards the garden.
That sounds great, and it's all about local business and local support. Everything that we experienced so much in the first wave of the pandemic, when I think local businesses in the city and further afield were just tremendously supportive. So how much money are you hoping to raise, and and when do the tickets go on sale?
So back in January, if you would ask me, I would have said probably about 30 quid, hopefully. But since then, it's kind of gathered pace quite a bit. Only last week, I was speaking to one of our contractors, a friend of mine now. He has donated a £500 TV towards the raffle, and also given £4,500 towards building the garden, which was a huge step in the right direction for us. So I'm hoping we can at least double that now, with up to hopefully £10,000 plus raised to give towards building the garden. Staff can purchase tickets in two ways. They can physically, there's going to be 7 or 8 representatives within the building that they can go to and purchase a ticket physically, or there's going to be a QR code on the poster that they can scan from their phones, because that's what they do nowadays rather than cash. And they can scan this and pay via their phone straight into the cashier's desk, and all the money then will be saved at the cashier's desk. Hopefully at the end of it we've got a nice lump that we can then pass over to the guys to construct the garden.
So I just have a feeling that everyone will really, really want to get behind this, and I think you'll absolutely smash the target that you would want. So when are we hoping this garden might be ready?
So we're hoping it will start to take shape in springtime. It's been a slow process because we have to do it properly. So nesting season's started. There's lots of checks that have to be made to make sure we're doing it sustainably and in the correct way for the environment. So hopefully we can start work in spring.
And when will it be finished, do we think?
I think it will be an ongoing process. Yeah, gardens don't finish, they just continue to thrive. And so we're hoping that this is something that people want to contribute to over the next decade. So we don't see it ever really being finished.
That's great. So thank you all so much for joining me today, and thank you for thinking of our patients, their relatives and staff. I think this is going to be tremendous. And I think Jim's absolutely right, gardens are never finished, and I know that from my own. It just keeps going. But it does bring me great joy, and I think from what the team have described today, just planning and thinking and everyone contributing, and if you can spare a couple of pounds to buy a raffle ticket, this more than anything for me signals hope. And I think hope is what keeps everybody going in the trust, and I believe that we can always make some good out of things that have been really, really difficult, and it will bring, I am sure, great joy to many in the future. So let's just turn to the executive team and a couple of the changes that I've been making there. So I'm really pleased that Kevin Baber has now moved to a role of Director of Strategy. This is really to reflect the work that we're having to do as UHP across a wider system across Devon and Cornwall. So as well as working with myself with the ICSs, Kevin will also be working with Mark Hamilton, Medical Director, who joined us back in January, to really develop the Trust's clinical strategy, clinical engagement, and how we work across the two ICSs. This will be really important as we start to think about the new build, the work that Stuart Windsor is leading, and of course our digital transformation, which is now integral to any new builds of the hospital. As a result of Kevin moving into strategy, I'm delighted to say that Jo Beer, who was the Director of Integrated Care and Partnerships, is now the substantive Chief Operating Officer. And I know she's working tirelessly with all of you to try and make the operational running of the hospital flow a little bit easier and to cope with the incredible demand that we've seen over recent weeks. I know how difficult that has been. You may also have seen in daily email that I'm delighted we've been awarded the new contract for Live Well South West to run their adult services, and that starts from the 1st of July. So Live Well will still absolutely continue as an organisation in its own right, but we're working a little bit more as commissioners. Now, the Director of Integrated Care and Partnerships has now been freed up because Jo has moved into the coup role. And just while we're having a bit of a stock take this year, then Jane Carroll will be the Interim Director of Integrated Care and Partnerships. Jane's with us for a one-year contract and comes from a long history of working in the NHS, both at commissioning and at provider level. So really, really fortunate and grateful that Jane is joining us for a year. So with a little bit of reprofiling of portfolios at exec level, hopefully we'll be able to cover all the bases that we need to as a trust, and ideally will give me a bit more freed up time so I can come out and about and spend some time with you, which, as you know, I love doing most of all. So I'm really pleased to welcome Peacha and Owen to talk about how we're bringing two really important things together. That's how do we bring digital technology and making sure that we keep our patients safe at all times. So at the moment what we're doing, and you might have seen this in some of the ward areas, is bringing out electronic systems that really try to eradicate human error. And when we're really, really busy, we know how important that is. EPMA is one example, and Owen's been really instrumental in taking that forward. And we've got a really exciting plan to roll this out with more systems over the coming months and years. This will be really important as we build the new hospital. So welcome Peacha and Owen, great for you to join me today. So we've been doing a lot of work about digital and keeping patients safe, and in particular Peacha, you've been working on Nervecentre, which is really the way that we care for patients overnight. So could you just tell me a little bit more about it and what this will mean?
Okay, so Nervecentre is, we bought the safety bundle, and part of that bundle is hospital at night. We already have a system in place which was good for its time, but it's now old. If it breaks down, IT have already said they can't fix it. It did well for the time we've had it. Nervecentre, the principle's the same, but it's slicker, it's easier to use, it tells you a lot more detail. Certainly on the receiving end, if I have a patient referred to me, at the minute you log on, what would be, they'll have a form to fill out. The ward staff from 8 o'clock in the evening will be able to log on and they can request a cannula, request a doctor's review, and there's various things that they can request. They can do that now as well. That will then go out, and when it comes to us, the acute care team, and we triage all the requests, and we'll send them to the appropriate doctor or send it to our colleagues. The difference with Nervecentre is that our registrars will be aware of where our sick patients are, because if a red call goes out and we send it to a junior doctor, at the moment the registrar, the night med reg relies heavily on the junior doctors telling them where their sick patients are. It's auditable, it's easier for the ward staff to use, it's easier for us to use. So the acute care, the hospital at night system will be, once everything's in place, we'll link in with the electronic observations and everything, give us a lot more detail. It's much safer for our patients because more information is being told to us, so we know how to triage where we'll go, who we'll see first. Yeah.
And presumably it will make you and your team feel a lot safer in terms of just being able to prioritise where you need to go.
Yeah.
And presumably you're expecting your workload to go up as a result of this.
I am.
It's going to be so much better informed.
Yes, I'm sure Owen's going to talk to you about the electronic observations, but I'll just mention that when we do that, we'll have a triage system, and as soon as somebody triggers, instead of relying on our nurses, our doctors who are busy to sort of say, oh yeah, that's triggered, we're going to inform so-and-so, it'll do automatic referrals. And yeah, our workload, I expect our workload as the acute care to increase.
Yeah, but that's going to be
for the safety of our patients.
That's absolutely right.
And make it much safer for them.
Yeah, that's good. So what comes next, and what sort of timescales are we looking at for these new developments?
Well, as Peacha alluded to, the hospital night system is coming first, so we've actually got 3 programs from the Nervecentre suppliers, and we were kind of staggering the rollout, for obvious reasons, to allow staff to kind of come to terms how to use it, but with the hope that all 3 will eventually communicate to each other and give a overall approach to entire patients' use of the system, and also give you a more in-depth view of what the patient's journey has been. The next program that we're going to roll out is the EDIS replacement in ED. So we've got a new ED system that's designed a little bit more concurrently with what ED need for their IT and their digital information for patients. So we've directly liaised with all the most of the ED consultants and nursing staff, and even some of the adult health professionals and admin staff to try and get them a system that we know will work for them and ultimately for the patients in the long run. And that is ideally going to be implemented sometime in late 2021, I would say probably close to winter time, although deadlines and timelines do change. And then after that, we've got a very exciting program with the patient safety program, which is electronic observations plus a lot more. There's going to be some safety bundles and some patient care pathways that will also be incorporated into the patient safety module. So it's not just electronic observations, although that will take a massive part of the system, which will allow us far more control and overview for patients' medical status in the trust, and will give us and hopefully the acute care team and the entire workforce a better view of how the patients are, if they're deteriorating, and what steps to take next.
I mean, that sounds just so exciting. I think your point, Peacha, is spot on. Is the systems we've got now are okay, might have been of their time, but now we really need to take advantage of technology just to make sure our patients are safe, because if our patients are safe, that helps us work with you and for you to keep them safe, which is a much more reliable way of working. And it's great to see so many clinicians involved in reading this work, and you really do understand how it needs to work. And I guess there's never an easy time, given the operational pressures, to be able to have a quiet moment to make some of these changes.
No.
Not quite sure what a quiet moment means.
No, I don't think we do. But onwards and upwards, I'm sure if there's a way, you'll find it. That's been great, and thank you both so much. I think it'll be really exciting, and it'll be a great platform on which to build for the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
And finally, just a few things from me. I know how busy it is operationally here at the hospital, but today's interviews and discussions has just reminded me how important it is to think about just how far we've come. And we don't always realise that unless we take a moment and look back. But also it's about hope and thinking about the future. And I've been really touched both about the collaboration to develop a garden such as this one, which helps us make that really important transition from the year that's been like no other to think about the future, and as always put the needs of the people who matter most to us at the heart of everything. That's the patients we care for, their loved ones, and of course all of you, our amazing, fantastic, fabulous colleagues.